Ladies and gentlemen, we are back and we're rolling.
Woohoo! Oh, and look at you.
Here we are in Truth and Consequences.
Here I am in Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, and you'll never guess who I ran into. Lucy, we're in Truth or Consequences.
We are, I know. Isn't that a cool name?
Which means you have to tell the truth, or there will be consequences.
How will she know?
How will she know? Right. So you're doing a Discovery Channel series on warrior women, and the first place you went to was?
The first place I went to was China, and it was amazing. I took my daughter Daisy, and I just loved the Chinese. They were like a big bunch of Kiwis. There wasn't. I know that it must be simplistic. This can't be right, but they felt so easy to understand and so totally just like us. You know, I feel often with Japanese people that there's a much bigger cultural gulf just in terms of etiquette, and you know, you're always afraid of offending them, whereas with the Chinese it was very relaxed. This is in around Beijing, so the Mandarin culture there. Of course, China's a huge continent and there's many peoples within China, but I found them incredible, wonderful, selfless, funny, well-educated. I just loved them.
Were most of them speaking English? Is that how you were able to
Not
get along?
all of them spoke English, but somehow it didn't matter. Even my daughter communicated with them as if she spoke Chinese. It was so, yeah, they were really just easy to understand. And it's really opened up the whole world of, we have a lot of Asian people, recent immigrants to New Zealand, and it's just opened my eyes and my mind and heart to a whole sector of the community that I probably felt had nothing to do with me, you know, or that I wouldn't understand, and now I'm just so interested in them and easy in their company.
Did you just stay around Beijing, or did you travel to other parts of the country?
We drove about 8 hours out of Beijing, which is basically a suburb. You know, you have to drive a long way to get away from people. I mean, you have to go to Mongolia to get away from people in China. It's populated all the way, and every inch of it seems to be farmed. But we did go up to the Great Wall of China and walked around there a while and did some filming. Rode a camel, the most fantastic camels you ever saw, real, you know, 2 humpers, and they look like, you know, a wump out of Dr. Seuss' book. They've got these crazy bumps, and they've got these big pom-poms on their feet, which just grow naturally. It's just their fur. They're outrageous looking, really picturesque, and so yeah, we rode camels and just had the most magical time.
So we're going to see you on a camel there? Did they film that, or was that just
No, that was
an extracurricular activity?
Yeah, you won't see. I'm afraid that didn't make the film. It wasn't germane to the story about the warrior woman Wang Song. We're touting her as the real Mulan because Mulan didn't really exist. She's a composite of many different Chinese warrior women in history, or she's a legend or an idealized character, but she didn't really exist. But there are many examples of courageous women who led men into battle.
We saw there was a photo that's been released from, I'm going to jump ahead just a minute, to Joan of Arc in France, and you wore the armor there. Did you wear any outfits?
Did they release that? I haven't seen any of the photos.
It's a screen grab, actually.
I put on armor. I didn't often wear costumes. It wasn't necessary, but it was very interesting to put the armor on. It's ungodly heavy, and they've made it as authentically as they possibly can. It weighs 80 pounds.
What's it made out of?
Metal as they would have used, you know. God, I don't know. Did they make steel in those days? I guess it's a type of...
I think
steel's got aluminium in it. I can't tell you. But boy, is it heavy stuff.
I thought perhaps it might have been, because we've seen a lot on television of sort of leather outfits.
Right. No, they wore proper metal armor, and guys, there's thousands and thousands of people around Britain who spend their weekends reconstructing history. So they really dress up like knights. They really do battles. I mean, they're crazy. They're crazy. Some of them in a really good way. Some of them in a really kind of spooky way, actually.
Really?
Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
we've had some real adventures.
Yeah. Like what?
Oh, getting screamed at it by some small town martinet because she's, you know, she felt really knowledgeable about such and such, and she's got all these supplicants around her who, and you're just watching them and you say, you people can't see the emperor has no clothes. she's an awful woman who's bossing you around. You're men and women with minds of your own, and they were, I don't know, I think they liked it.
You think so?
I think they liked being lorded over by somebody with a lot of, I don't know, she had a lot of oomph, you know, and zero humility. So she was kind of the lord of the manor.
Was she an elected official or just?
No, just some woman who set herself, you know, like those women on the PTA who you just can't get rid of, who make everybody else's life miserable. And I don't know, there's people like that all over the world, aren't there?
How many days were you there? And when were you? Do you remember when you were there? What month or?
I believe June through July. May and June, sorry. And actually some of the footage, some of the places we filmed for Joan were actually in Wales or England because the castles are more accessible and are in better shape.
So Wales was standing in for France, the castles in France?
Yeah, they were just in better shape.
Yeah.
A lot of the French ones have been horribly destroyed.
But you were in China in May and June?
I was in China in March.
You were in China in
My
March.
birthday in China.
Okay. How was the food there, and where?
The food's fantastic, really great. I prefer to eat with the natives wherever you go. You know, that's where you get the really good food, and you know, and it's reasonably priced and really authentic. That's what you want, an authentic experience of wherever you're going. The food was great. I did not eat the jelly chicken's feet or you know, any of the more exotic dishes, but I have to say the mandarins do not eat. They're very quick to tell you they do not eat cats and dogs, and they really are offended by any suggestion that they do. It's not their style.
You said you wanted to eat with the locals. You know, where would you? I mean, would you go somewhere outside? Or?
We had to convince our driver that that was good enough for us and really what we wanted, because, you know, they want to treat you, you know, really well, with great, huge hospitality. And so we were at pains to explain how much we would, you know, what an honour it would be just to eat with regular Chinese folk.
Could you get the taxi driver? Could you get the taxi driver to take you home with himself, with his family?
You know, we probably could have. They were, you know, they became very fond of us, and we of them.
Yeah. Did you know there's a Starbucks at the Great Wall of China?
Yes, I did know that.
I think that.
Yeah, Chairman Mao would turn in his grave. Not at the Great Wall, in the Forbidden City.
Oh yeah, I learned that on the plane.
I didn't see it, I have to say, when we were there, but all the Westerners were going, I can't believe it.
So from China, are there any other adventures that you can remember? Where did your crew go? Your crew was going to stand here and
oh no, they've seen it all
they're
before.
waiting on dinner.
No, they're just so charming and poetic, and the young lady who was our guide, her name was Echo. She had initially chosen the name Edith, but thought it sounded too much like idiot, so she changed it to Echo, and we said that's a great name, keep it, because her Chinese name was Lan Shen, and which is also beautiful. And when we were leaving, she was very sad, and she said, this week has been like a great harvest for me. So beautiful. So I'm hoping to bring her out to New Zealand for the Women in Film and Television Summit in 2004.
Oh, that would be
If I'm there, otherwise
right.
maybe she can come to America or wherever I am.
And what did Daisy think of it?
Yes, my daughter, who can't fix herself can't fix herself a cup of hot cocoa, managed to get herself to Beijing, And she can go shopping, she can communicate with him beautifully, so I don't need to worry about her. She's got good skills.
And you made a stop in Singapore?
We stopped in Singapore on the way home, and I had taken to China a cold that my sons had had in America. And of course, this was the beginning of the SARS epidemic, and going through Singapore trying not to cough, and I was just having, my eyes are watering, and because I had no fever, I knew it was nothing like that. But boy, everybody was looking out for one another. It was the germ police were out in force.
You were Typhoid Mary, right in Singapore.
This is where the epidemic
If I
started.
suspected I had anything at all, if I had any kind of temperature, I would have been in the, I don't want to harm anyone else or my own life, but
Funny.
but it was just a regular old annoying cold.
After China, you went home to New Zealand, and then which country did you go to next?
The next place I went directly to France, and I was incredibly ill with, just with jet lag. So they were going out to fabulous places, and for dinner, and I would sit there and just, try not to fall off my chair. And they said, for goodness sake, go to bed. So I went to bed, and I was fine the next day. And then we went to Chinon,
And who were you profiling there?
in France we were covering the life of Joan of Arc. And I have to say Paris is the most romantic place on earth. Everybody should go there and just fall in love. That's a great place to be in love.
Why is it romantic?
Because it looks like all those movies where Audrey Hepburn was falling in love, it still looks exactly the same. You feel like you're stepping back into some kind of gentler, more gorgeous world.
Did you have a chance to walk the narrow streets at
Boulevard.
night? What was that?
No.
No?
I mean, yes, we did, but we were working pretty hard. So.
All right.
Yeah, there was no love affairs going on for anybody around me, but I'm just recommending to everybody else.
Now, Joan of Arc has anything to do with Paris, or is that just the place you started?
Yeah, we were just passing through
Right.
Paris, and
What actual locations were you at?
we went to Chinon, and Reims, actually. It's spelled Riems, but it's pronounced Reims for some reason, like an N. And that's a cathedral where the Dauphin was crowned. That was her mission, to have the Dauphin crowned and drive out the English, which she succeeded in. And then she got locked up in a, tower by the Burgundians, the enemies, who had now attained a truce with the Dauphin. So basically, and he never tried to get her back. He did such a dirty trick. They did such terrible things to that young girl. They drove her mad. Terrible, terrible story. The good thing about these shows is that they bring history alive. They make all those people live again in your mind. You really feel, you begin to relate to what it must truly have been like. This is not just a legend. This really happened to some poor girl. In fact, many, many women and men too, presumably. Just medieval Europe was a terrible place to be different.
Right.
That's the great thing about this is it makes you feel something.
Right. They did what's the word I'm thinking of? They did
Reenactments?
Reenactments.
Yeah.
As part of this.
Right, they got actresses to play the lead roles, and really they did a great job too. These were often inexperienced women, but they were just terrific. They really took on the mantle of whoever they were playing, and it looks awfully good.
I'm remembering actually seeing something on the web that pertained to England. Were these reenactments done sort of by regular people and not actors? Or
Sometimes, yeah. A lot of them. And a lot of the people in the backgrounds are reconstructionists. That's people who do it for a hobby. And God bless them too, because they were actually, by and large, they were fantastic people. Loved them. The Irish guys were great. We went to Ireland and did the story of Grace O'Malley, a real woman pirate, a contemporary of Queen Elizabeth. In fact, they were born the same year and died the same year in 1603. And Queen Elizabeth I, who was the navy of all the seas, and she was empress and master of all the seas and leader of the empire, had in fact never been further on her boat than Greenwich, so she stayed up the river. She never went on the high seas, only stepped foot on a barge, basically. And Grace O'Malley had been having a terrible time with the Queen's representatives in Ireland, who were persecuting her family, in fact, the whole Gaelic world, trying to bring them under their thumb. This was started by Elizabeth's father, Henry VIII. Also, they were Catholic. They were Catholic, and they were also ancient Celtic, an ancient Celtic culture which had its own funky interpretation of Catholicism. But Henry didn't want any of that, and he wanted his taxes, and he wanted to take the lands and conquer it. So they persecuted the people very brutally, who fought back very brutally. And Grace O'Malley became a leader and a pirate. She used to travel to Spain and trade there. And when she was 60 years old, she thought, damn it, I've had enough. She got in her boat, sailed perilous waters for her, because she was a notorious woman, sailed up the Thames and went and had an audience with the Queen. Got an audience with the Queen. The Queen really liked her. They really hit it off, though neither of them spoke the same language. At least Grace couldn't speak English. The Queen couldn't speak Irish. So they both spoke Latin. So Grace was a very well-educated woman for a rough... Basically, they were considered barbarians. But the Queen really liked her, was very intrigued by her stories. Grace was a really tough character, a lover, a seductress, just an extraordinary character.
The way you talk about Grace O'Malley, I think she might be the character you related to the most.
Yeah, she was, because, I don't know, I guess she was closest to Xena in a way.
Going out there and taking charge.
Yeah. And really did it. I don't know that I would have the wherewithal to, do, if I was in the same situation. I doubt whether I would have the guts to be Grace O'Malley, but she did it. She's amazing.
Did she come out of the audience with the Queen alive?
She did, and lived the rest of her days in peace. The Queen instructed it, much to the chagrin of her sheriff in Galway. But her sons had been killed. A couple of her kids had been killed, and it was a very tough life.
And your maiden name is?
Ryan.
And do we have relatives in Ireland?
I do. I have relatives who are down the coast from where Grace lived, in County Clare. There's very few of them left.
Did you get to visit any of your relatives while you were there?
I didn't. I didn't have any time to.
Right.
And they also, like Grace, were involved in the sacking of the Spanish Armada.
Your relatives?
Right, yeah. That
yeah?
community, anyway. They live at a place called Spanish Point, which is where ships from the Spanish Armada got wrecked on the rocks or were pirated. And Grace is thought to have ferried quite a lot of them to Scotland to safety. But it was under pain of death. It was very forbidden to save the lives of these guys. They were supposed to slaughter them on the beach.
We have photos of you on a Mongolian pony in China, and I heard you were riding a white horse in France. Was that part of... Was that extracurricular, or is that part of Joan?
No, every director wants to put me on a horse.
You were on a horse in China, weren't you?
Yeah.
We've got pictures of that.
Tough little Mongolian ponies.
Pony, yeah.
But the horse in France was beautiful.
Yeah.
Lovely horse. I would hate to try to really ride a Mongolian pony, because they're too smart for me. They know what they're doing, and I don't speak their language, basically. But the French horse and I understood one another. French horse spoke English.
I did notice that the pictures of the Mongolian pony where the horse was standing still, and the pictures of you in France seemed to be as if you were about to start doing something.
Right. Oh, we did, you know, I did trot the pony up the hill, I think, but
Yeah.
a whole
Any,
different kettle of fish.
Any time for any extracurricular stuff in Paris or France at all? No, just...
No, no, we don't have time to play around at all, but I don't mind that, you know, I love to work and travel. I'm a bad holiday person. I don't like sitting around doing nothing, and just sightseeing is dull to me. So to be able to do what I love in great company in interesting places,
It's perfect.
yeah, it's really good.
And when you find yourself alone in a country like Prague and you have spare time on your hand, your brain starts to go in strange places and you start to think of strange occupations.
Yeah, when I got to Prague after Ireland, well, first of all, it was like going Technicolor because we had been in gloomy castles. It was freezing, not just Ireland, but everywhere that we went. Castles are built in freezing, drafty, horrible places, you know. So we were wet and cold and blowing off the side of hills. And going to Prague was warm, and all of a sudden there was great coffee, and there was beautiful food and beautiful everything. And I mean, Ireland was knockout too, but it was a very windswept and you know, moody beauty, whereas Prague's just, I don't know, it's luscious somehow. It was just a little humid. I enjoyed that. You know, the heat was really, I don't know, fulsome, something. Anyway, so I went there to work on, do a little part in Ugly Americans. And I had a few days off, and so I started to think how to amuse myself. And the first thing I thought of was, a little dull looking back, was, you know, about how to get a job there. So get a job in a cafe, because I was really completely alone, you know, didn't know anybody at all on the production yet. And the next day I went busking with two guys, one from Moldavia and one from former Yugoslavia. Only one of them spoke any English at all, but they knew all the Pink Floyd and they wanted me to sing the words, and I was scratching my brain, racking my brain rather, scratching my brain. You know, trying to remember those words that were such anthems when I was a kid.
What are some Pink Floyd? I was trying to remember what the Pink Floyd hits were.
Wish You Were Here. Wish you were here. So you think you can tell heaven from hell? Are you just getting me to do this? You're just tricking me again, aren't you?
I hadn't thought of it, but it's not a bad idea. But really, I've been trying to and I don't have any Pink Floyd in my house or Pink Floyd in my house. Because after we did the interview, I went and looked. I had something of everything in here, and I couldn't find anything.
No, it's
and
beautiful.
And the wall.
It's beautiful literate stuff. All in all, you're just another brick in the wall.
That's what it is. Okay. All right. I won't ask you to do anymore.
Yeah.
But at least now I remember. So did you actually manage to join in with them? And
yeah, I did. I
Uh-huh.
did, and I got 50 crowns from some German boy who thought I sang really good. And I tried to get them to keep it because, you know, they were busking and I was just freeloading really for the experience. Yeah. But they were... It just became offensive had I just said, no, you keep it. Yeah. It's a typical thing that Americans and, you know, that we do from our countries, because it's a little patronising. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yes, I do. So I didn't press the issue, but but I wish they had taken it. Anyway,
so you smuggled your 50 crown out of the country.
Do you know what? This guy, he was such a nice man, and he,
Who's that?
The guy from Moldavia. I think it was Moldavia. Anyway, he had a funny name. That's right. What was his name? It meant something like gossip, and he talked a lot. Oh. But he was very simple, kind of like a clown, kind of. Just somehow he was clown-like in a really sweet way. Anyway, and he had this old Walkman that played tapes, and he had made batteries out of like copper wire and whatever the heck's in a battery, right? And he had taped it to this thing, and he could recharge this really funky-looking battery, and it was playing up on him, and I had gone and bought a CD Walkman, and when I left, because it didn't play my New Zealand CDs. For some reason, anyway, I was thinking, gosh, maybe this doesn't play CDs from America or New Zealand or something. Yeah. And so one of the guys from the production dropped it off at this guy's house, and he so I hope he can afford real batteries, because I don't think the other one, but you don't think about that. These people are really, they're so poor, and they don't take anything for granted. Yeah. And I mean, you know what it's like in America when you have a CD thing and it breaks, you just biff it out, right?
That's right.
We'll just get another one. Not these guys, boy. Yeah. That thing he had must have been 20 years old. Held together with tape.
Extraordinary.
Yeah.
And did you visit any of the local establishments while you were in Ireland?
I have to say we went to many pubs, because that's where you eat, and that's the community centre in Ireland. And it was actually really nice. They're not pick-up joints like we expect bars to be. Everybody's there is the rugby playing team, and there's their mothers and their girlfriends, and there's children in there. It's not about going out and getting smashed. They're there almost every day. It seemed that it's just the meeting place, because they work very hard. This is not in the city. This is out on the coast, and they work very hard in quite isolated places, and then they all come together at the end of the workday.
And you fit right in.
Fit right in. Yes, we shouted the whole pub a round of drinks, and that made us very popular. And there's lots of Irish music, and it was great. Yeah, it was great.
And the last place you're going to is New Mexico, which is why we're in Truth or Consequences.
Fantastic, Truth or Consequences. You have to go to a town called Truth or Consequences, and it's just so beautifully named. And we're staying at the Sierra Grande Lodge, which is knockout, isn't it?
Yeah, and has an incredible cook. An
incredible chef.
He's cute too, by the way. Yes. I'm single, I'm allowed to look.
And, it's just beautiful. I feel like, it's a very spiritual place, out in the desert. It's a lovely place to be.
And the character that they're filming about here is?
We're filming the story of Xena. We don't know her real Apache name, but she was one of the last warrior women who rode with Geronimo, or about the time of Geronimo.
So I think I'll let you go back upstairs and go to bed, and thanks for sitting down and talking with us.
It's a pleasure.
It's a pleasure.
Lovely as always, Sharon.
Thank you. Any town who will change its name to Truth or Consequences, we will run the show there and give it lots of publicity. So these townspeople got together, all 4,300 of them, and decided to rename their town Truth or Consequences. And so here we are.
I love that name.
Great.
So just give me feed me your line.
I think, but wasn't that at the Forbidden City?
Oh yeah, I learned that. I'm practicing this out in the courtyard. What was that story I was telling you? Acting is not gonna be my strong suit.
We don't really need that, Sharon.
Okay.
No, that's never gonna match.
Oh. Did you have any other adventures in China? Or was it all?
Yeah, because that was. Okay, you got to cut that in. Or was it all boring?
And do you have any recollection of that? We could do no, and then we could do.
We have enough. We have enough.
Yay!